Hey everyone, I'm Alex Valdivia. I'm on the research team at ThreatConnect.
And I know the program probably said to expect the eventual person to look at some stuff going on for we should do the best, but while we're not going to be doing a talk on artificial intelligence, we're going to close adversary intelligence. And talking guys through a part of the story about essentially the context about various capabilities and intent of adversary, how they change and skew perceptions and understanding of risk. So, for those of you guys that want to stick with us, we got some gifts at the end for really good questions. So, apologize for the change up, but hopefully it'll make it worth it. So,
Yeah, sure. So we know that there's a stigma with the C word, not that C word, but the other C word. So we're going to try to keep those non-existent, not even. Whoa. Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Keep them to a minimum, but you guys can keep us in check, keep us honest. Is there a volume setting on this mic?
So, obviously there's a lot of controversy around adversary intelligence and attribution, right? It's a really hotly debated topic. Really just because, a lot of folks will argue, we shouldn't be doing it. It's too hard. We don't have the right authorities. We can acknowledge that that's probably true in some cases, but at the end of the day, it's important that we are able to kind of understand what essentially the technical capabilities of an adversary are and apply some of the context of what they're trying to accomplish and do. And so a lot of folks are like, I don't care necessarily who hit me, and that doesn't necessarily stand. I mean, if you're walking down the street and someone just pulls up and punches you in the back of the head, are you going to just cup your hands over your eyes and go to the helmet store to avoid getting hit in the head again? Or are you going to turn around and kind of size up and just knock your lights out? And so it's just really important in this day and age for folks to kind of think about where adversary intelligence fits into the intelligence life cycle and understanding how that applies to conventional threats. So and just because something is controversial, that argument doesn't scale, especially with some of the threats that we're seeing today. So, obviously, in our position on the subject is that more information is better. You can make better decisions. You can understand risks a little bit better versus kind of putting your head in the sand and an ostrich and just kind of ignoring various aspects of the threat. I'm only going to focus on the technical analysis of what the infrastructure does or what the capability does. I don't care anything about the specific individual or organization that's responsible for doing this to me and what they're trying to accomplish. And that just really doesn't apply to them. So, I don't know if you have any things here. So, kind of back to what we're saying, right? So there's when we look at different threats today, it's really important to understand really the move because it's going to drive the risk, or understanding the risk and how it impacts. And then that perception is also going to drive a response to what sort of threat you're dealing with. Part of your reaction. So, and if, like I said, if that doesn't convince you, right, usually when we, approach a decision maker within the business about an incident or some sort of event, you're going to already have some sort of detail about the what and the how. You saw unauthorized activity, these were the details, this is maybe how they got in, logs indicate this is the timeline. And usually you've already developed some sort of basic picture about what the details of the set event are. And usually leaders, to some degree, are going to ask who. And so this really doesn't negate the problem. You can't sidestep, the who question. What's their intent? What are they after? Obviously leadership's going to want to know that, and that has to kind of reach across the strategic, continuum of the tactical and operational elements of, security ops all the way up to the C-suite. So The boss is always going to want to know who. So as you start to build that picture, mapping the technical to the geopolitical, social political is very important. So I don't know if you guys like read history, but Socrates definitely applied rigorous frameworks using threat intelligence analysis.
It's true.
It's true. You can Wikipedia this. Totally
Google
true.
it.
So, so one of the things that we have developed at ThreatConnect, or at least implemented, one of our founders was the author to the Diamond Model Intrusion Analysis, which is built in a way that accounts for adversary. And as part of that that methodology, it makes room for understanding what an adversary's capabilities are and what their intent is behind leveraging the relationship of this technical access between capabilities and infrastructure. And so over time, once you sit on one of these vertices long enough, and you'll be able to learn about the other nodes. So if you're sitting at the on a victim hop, you're going to be able to see what an adversary uses in terms of their infrastructure. You're going to be able to monitor certain capabilities that they might have, or upload or download. And so as you go around this enough, or enough people share information around the same common thread, you'll start to build out a picture of that adversary. They'll eventually screw up. And we'll talk about that here towards the end. And again, the perceptions change. Like, you'll have that nascent picture, but over time, as you develop more content, more information is synthesized against this model, you can begin to make follow-on decisions around this. And this applies, and what we'll talk through is like how some very nascent tactical details can ultimately bubble up to some strategic decision support. So, I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah, right. So in case anybody's eyes are glazing over, or you want to put this in a different context, the shirts we're wearing, the backs, have this depiction of the diamond model, right? So tell it to me in Star Wars. So you have an adversary. In this case, it's Luke Skywalker. You're looking at it from the perspective of the Empire, right? So the victim is the Empire, capabilities, proton torpedoes, infrastructure, T-65 X-Wing, although the graphic has some more detailed stuff like the Force is a capability, right? And Luke Skywalker is able to target Womp Rats, right?
Right. So, I mean, we can kind of walk through the different sorts of capabilities that Luke has, throughout the movie, and how he projects those sorts of capabilities against his target in terms of his infrastructure, technically. But that's all buttressed behind the intent, right, to destroy the Empire, right? So there's a socio-political aspect to the disruption that he seeks, right? So we can kind of map the butt of the joke here is if the victim here knew that the adversary had a certain TTP, he would have responded to that risk in a different way. So, stepping back here, we just kind of wanted to set the scene, right? So we go back to 2005. You're an admin or a network security engineer or something like that, and you've seen about 2 years worth of targeted attacks for some time, right? All the open source information on this says, hey, this risk is low. Don't worry about this. This isn't a big deal. But what you see inside your enterprise is a little bit different. You're seeing like consistent targeted attacks. Maybe there's some folks in the same vertical are seeing some of the same TTPs or some of the same capabilities like against you. And so at this point, it's what do I perceive this threat to be? Like, I can really only understand what they do in terms of actions on the objective and its impact to my organization. And so this is kind of that nascent picture. And so we start to model that within the Diamond model, and we can start to kind of fill out these little buckets, if you will, and sort kind of our knowledge. So we can see, a specific, sample is, spearfish to leadership. It's configured to call back to a certain location. We can map that over time. We can find overlaps in terms of infrastructure. In terms of actions on the objective, maybe we have logs that say, hey, this is the password that they use. Is that a common password we've seen them use? Is that something other folks have seen them use? And so as we go around this diamond, and there's other folks that have their own diamonds, we can begin to fuse, and you see this lattice or this graph of like diamonds begin to emerge around this threat. And so, if you go back, so like I said, this is like 2005 timeframe. We had WHOIS protections on this infrastructure. So within a month later, right, the story changes a little bit. So in the October timeframe, WHOIS service falls off that domain, off that C2, and we start to say, okay, here's some new data points here that we can add to that developing picture. We have this reference to the Hubsoft, and a reference to Shanghai, and oh, by the way, this ugly gorilla, 163. What's that about, right? So maybe some of the folks that are in our same circles have said, hey, we suspect this is associated with a specific Chinese EPT threat or certain espionage. We can begin to kind of respond in a way that's commensurate with that type of threat versus a financially motivated attacker or an ideologically motivated attacker, and start putting together the correct type of response that is going to be the best use of your time, talent, treasure. So, all right. So as we begin to kind of flesh this out, we get a glimpse of an adversary details, right? So this gives us some opportunities to do some basic open source. And like I've highlighted a couple times before, is that it takes a couple trips around the diamond. This stuff doesn't come overnight. And so being able to memorialize information over time, apply it to a model, and understand the relationships between these different data points, and scaling across other folks that might have similar data points is important. So information that we identified back in 2005 timeframe, open source, an individual claiming, obviously that has the capabilities to speak, or read, Chinese, or it claims to be in a certain region or claims to be in a certain profession, begins to line up with what we see 10 years later when we see the FBI deliver indictments against this individual. And even within the indictment, we could see, certain details about things that apply to us in the use case that we highlighted earlier with regard to password reviews. But we can begin to understand that adversary encompasses or encapsulates more than just the individual warm body behind the keyboard, but the benefactor of the information in which they're targeting and going after. So, kind of a better way to understand that is, if we map the content from the indictment to some of these tactical details that we developed over time, we can see that the state-owned enterprises were ultimately benefactors from an organization that had warm bodies conducting these activities against victims, leveraging what we see in the tactical access or technical access. So, you want to hit some of this on the substance for us?
Sure. Actually,
slide. Wow. All right, help me your slide monkey.
I'm going to stay away. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in this case, we have, kind of at the bottom, we have our ops and our intel, right? That both organizations are playing off one another and enabling, security operations or the, SOC and information is going to funnel up to the C-suite, hopefully. But there's perceptions of risk, right? So the malware analyst is going to look at a sample of malware completely different than a CISO. It's going to have completely different meanings between the two types of entities just because of where they sit and what they perceive to be risk. So, it's also important too as we go from top down is that decisions that obviously the C-suite makes is going to impact how the rest of the folks in the food chain at the operational and tactical levels react to a merger and acquisition. What are the sorts of operational changes that they're going to have to make? Ultimately, what are some of the tactical implementations that we're going to see an enterprise deliver in support of carrying out that business operation goal? So kind of a way to kind of understand it with newer content would be kind of going back to the May time frame with the Robertic sample.
Right. So this second use case, it's a great example of that idea of perception, right, and how it affects how your organization or how a security organization would react to a threat. In early May, Rombertic, the self-destructing or kamikaze malware, was sensationalized by the media. We had headlines like this terrifying malware destroys your PC if detected, right?
Suicide bomber.
Deadly virus, suicide bomber. So this was a sample. Somebody analyzed it, and then the media took the information and disseminated like the most sort of worst case scenario. And this was a widespread message, right? And certainly it was received and reacted. People reacted to it in a way that affected their decisions.
Yeah. So you just think about all of the folks that got hair on fire. All the CISOs, all the bosses were like, "Hey, are we affected by this? Stop what you're doing. Let's focus on this thing." And was that the right decision? And what could have been done to help shape those perceptions so that someone could have known that, hey, I'm not going to invest my time, my people, focusing on this because there's some bigger, badder things out there. So we're going to kind of walk through that.
Right. So our research team happened to look at this blog post and the write-up, and it was a great write-up about the technical capabilities of this malware, right, or of this sample that was caught. Our friends at Talos, and they were able to identify capability. They were able to identify infrastructure that was tied to it, right? So this malware was calling out to this domain, centozos.org.in. So
yeah, and so the technical analysis was not flawed at all. It was spot on, but it was the interpretation of who the capability was aimed at. So we'll kind of explore that a little bit.
Right, so it kind of left this gap of who the adversary is or what the intent might be. And we wanted to answer that question, right? We wanted to make some connections on that. So we took a closer look at that domain name, which was registered to the email address genhostk@disposable.com. If anyone is familiar with Disposable, it's a free email service that has no password. Right? So all you need to know about a Disposable account is the email address itself, and then you can go into the inbox, and there is all the mail. Right. Step 3, profit. So one of the emails in this account happened to be addressed to not only the email address that the adversary was using for his C2 infrastructure, but also to what looked like a personal email address, callysky@yahoo.com. So that stuck out, right? Want to investigate that.
Yeah, we also started, this is just kind of one example of many that were kind of these investigative leads that helped us kind of fill out this adversary profile. But we could even kind of double check through also some of the meta within some of this content with registered infrastructure that just also happened to be leveraged within Zeus samples. So it was consistent with other things that were keeping kind of with that criminal, crimeware, financially motivated threat. And there were inconsistencies to this within the data in aggregate.
That's right. So the email address led to Kali Sky, right? Just Google Kali Sky, and we found a treasure trove of information. We had a Facebook account, we had a Twitter account, we had a LinkedIn account. But best of all, we had a YouTube account with a lot of videos and tutorials on some of these tools that Kali Sky was using. So let's just
this is some of the
share.
Because, this individual is essentially responsible for this capability. It was just really poor in terms of their operational security. They just really didn't care or really didn't think anybody was going to look. And so it wasn't, not to say this sort of thing comes to you overnight, but it's not as hard as a lot of folks make it out to be. And once you obtain this level of information, it really helps you understand what the level of risk is. And it gets pretty entertaining as we go through this. Move on to the next one.
Nope. Let's play that.
All right.
Well,
Well,
the internet
there we go.
goes
All right,
internet,
let's-
And I do a bunch of internet stuffs. I run an internet service.
Let's try that one more time. No, it was on that. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh, that's pretty soft.
my name is Coyote, aka Kali Sky, the internet
Yeah.
consultant, and I do a bunch of internet stuffs.
All right,
I run
so
an internet shop.
it's very soft, but in case you couldn't hear it, he says, "Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Coyote, aka Kali Sky, the internet consultant. I do a bunch of internet stuffs."
So we were interested in really understanding what those internet stuffs were.
Right. Yeah, and this is the guy we're dealing with, right? So, what is some of the internet stuffs that Coyote is talking about? Logging into your personal Facebook account while recording a Zeus botnet tutorial and then posting it to YouTube. This was actually a video that we found on his account, on his YouTube account, and he's going through this tutorial on how to use criminal software, and he just switches tabs over to his Facebook account, and there's his picture, and there's his real name, and there's all his connections. Poor OPSEC, to say the least. Another internet stuff that Kali Sky is capable of is exposing his passwords in it, from his browser history during his tutorials. He just clicks on it, they all drop down.
Anybody wanted to take over his infrastructure, they totally had the opportunity to do that.
Right, and he reuses passwords, that's for sure.
So, so basically we started to kind of develop a picture of not only the capability, have a specific call to infrastructure, we started to get an understanding of a specific adversary that was potentially leveraging that infrastructure. And so we started to see an incongruency with who was essentially responsible for controlling this infrastructure and the capability that we saw needed. And so things just really didn't line up, right? It's like, and so as we started to look at the malware again and revisit, it was all about context. What Talos had put out was technically correct. It wasn't that the malware would blow up the face of an analyst that was looking at it in person. It would blow up in the face of an operator who tried to rekey it to different control infrastructure. So that capability wasn't delivered to us as the end user, to the enterprise as the end user. It was delivered against to the cyber criminal where there's no honor among thieves. And so that was the key point, the key piece of context that was missing from the story. Now we can think about the outputs of that meeting and how many wasted man hours, how much wasted time and money was spent focusing on the wrong thing because we didn't develop an adversary profile that lined up with the capability of the infrastructure and line all of that together.
I think we can...
Skip through that.
Yeah, let's just skip that slide.
You guys are tired.
It's a long
That
day.
our presentation.
Yeah. Well, we have drinks in our hands, right? And
we were hilarious.
we'll email you guys later.
Yeah, so it's obviously, like I said, it's controversial. A lot of people say you should be doing it. I don't have time to do it. It's a waste of time and money. Is it really? And so I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. I'm sure, like in some cases, it doesn't want to probably shouldn't spend cycles on it. You have a finite list of things to do. This should never be your starting point. You should be definitely doing the basics in terms of your training self program. Really leveraging your own internal information, augmenting it with external information. This is more of something that you need to be doing down the line in support of a bunch of wins that you've got above us in terms of your program. So definitely don't think that we're saying this is the first move in all cases. It's not necessarily, but it should definitely be something that's in the back of people's mind to essentially ask and interrogate their data, constantly asking that same question, and revisiting it over time, because we've seen this example in APT1 that if we're not interrogating our data over and over and over, as things change, applying that new context to something, we might see something that is working. So, like I said, anyone's got good questions, we've got some goodies. Thanks for being flexible with the stuff. Yeah, it's obviously it's illegal, right? We have Title 18 keeps us from doing it. There's all sorts of social, certain countries obviously don't see hacking as necessary. It doesn't carry the same statements it carries in Rust, right? I don't really want to weigh in who's right or who's wrong. I mean, obviously, it goes back to the intent, right? And are you trying to do something to damage or hurt somebody or steal something? At the end of the day, this is all about stealing. You know, days of cavemen, right? We were going in droves or groups and stealing each other's meat. You know, this is really just kind of a medium to carry out this. So, you know, I'm sure it makes sense in some cases, but you know, until here in the West, until there's a new way that sort of thing is perceived, the stigma is not necessarily carried out, probably is the best thing we do. I mean, absolutely. Like there was no need to log into anything. Everything was publicly available. He, you know, was highly retarded, and you know that was what he certainly didn't see what he was doing as probably illegal. I mean, he's probably very hard up for cash where he's at. There's probably not the same opportunities that there are here. So you can get into all sorts of like kind of social geopolitical reasons why that is. But at the end of the day, as a security practitioner, when you have entities like this doing these sorts of things, you know, you need to be kind of ready and keyed and at least have some processes thought through to, again, deter or that, look for these sorts of mistakes. Because they're there. It's just, are we taking the time to look? Yeah, no, I mean, it's all out there on the internet. This was probably the best thing we did for him. Like, put him on that. Like, just,
yeah.
Crips, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, like there's all sorts of opportunities to see our human weaknesses with the keyboard, and the internet has a long memory, and so as a security practitioner, it's really good to kind of exploit, leverage that long memory for your game.
Any other questions?
So probably need to got the classes. Anyone else?
This is a one-of-a-kind shirt. There are no other shirts. There are no other shirts like this. Here you go. Thanks for the question.
Oh, one more. You only get one shirt.
That's cheating.
So when you're encountering how is that impacting this? How is that?
I'd say it really depends on who you are. Like, I mean, is your leadership, does that sort of thing mean anything? If you're in the defense sector, you probably have a mature enough process and capability of leadership that has meaning when you go to them with that. But if you're, let's say like a large, human resources agency that all you care about are, making sure the networks are up and records are, working and available, you probably aren't as, understanding those sorts of the risks and why specific entities would want billions of records and government employees. So, it's more of a mindset. I mean, this isn't stuff that you can buy off the shelf. It's really adopting a mindset that, yes, there is an adversary, there's a long body, they have intent. I can intend to be the best football player in the world, but if I can't run and throw, I'm really no threat to opposition, right? So it's really culturally accepting that, that this is the case and looking to apply that mindset to your security operations.
All right. Thanks a lot for coming out.